Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, and I think good morning from UK.
Yes.
Today we have come together with a lovely friend of mine. We have known each other for a very long time in the UAE, Hande Karabatak Bins. The purpose of our meeting, the purpose of our conversation is to talk about differences between coaching and psychotherapy. Hande is a social psychologist. She's based in the UK. As far as I know, she has worked in many industries across 3 continents. She's a culture coach. Am I right? She's a strategic HR consultant. She's a cross-cultural executive coach. Those are big words, quite fancy words. We'll try to just go inside the story. And then she's advising companies for transformational change, diversity, and running leadership courses as well. We have many similarities in terms of the professions and the background. I know she has also studied psychology and she has a master's degree. So this is the topic we have chosen today to share our experiences in an informal chatting environment, both of us. One of us in Dubai, the other is in... Which city are you in, Hande? In UK?
I'm close to Guildford, not in the city, but I'm very close to Guildford.
Guildford, close to London, as far as I know. It's not very far
45 minutes away from London, yeah.
Hopefully, when the COVID-19 stuff is finished, I'll come visit you in the UK. That's the plan. That's next year plan, hopefully.
That would be great. That would be great. I really look forward to seeing you here in the UK.
Me too. So you have lived in Dubai, so you know very well the environment. Hopefully, we'll try to do many things together as well in the future. So I want to actually start to ask a question. Like, I'm very curious about that question myself. Being a culture coach, what does it mean exactly being a coach, being an executive and cultural coach? In the companies.
All right. Well, if you allow me, I would love to introduce you first.
Oh great. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm really very proud to introduce you to Gamze Geray and to talk about coaching and therapy today with her. Gamze is a psychotherapist and a counselor. She has extensive experience in implementing talent and performance management systems in many organizations, both in Turkey and in the UAE. Gamze's debut book, Dissonance or Harmony, is part self-help, part inspirational memoir that motivates readers toward a more positive and optimistic way to view the world around them and to access to their inner happiness. She is frequently invited to deliver keynote speeches and public presentations in several institutes and conferences. I know for a fact that Gamze is a regular moderator in a Dubai Literature Festival.
Emirates Airlines Festival.
Yes, Emirates Airlines Festival. Sorry, since I left Dubai, I forgot the real titles of the many things that includes the festival. So Emirates Literature Festival, Emirates Airlines. So Gamze intensively focuses on sustainability in corporate and individual well-being, tolerance and happiness, meaning-centered life and work, combining talent and change management, emotional intelligence, career progression, leadership, and change management. Wow, that's what I can say. Wow.
It's too much even to hear all those things. Oh my God.
I think that summarizes the years of experience. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I hope so, and I wish so, because really you spend almost 3 decades in many industries. I know, as a former HR director in many organizations, and now as a consultant and advisor again in serving many organizations in the UK and back in Turkey and in the UAE. And as far as I know as well, you are at the stage of contributing an important chapter to the cross, cultural management topic in a book, which will be published in the fall. Am I right?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
a book is
Yes,
coming
that's
out.
correct.
So probably we'll focus on the book next September or October when the book is
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
Everybody will be reading about it.
that would be great.
I think so many years for both of us in the industry. We are like, how do we call ourselves? Veterans? No,
Or
they don't call us
dinosaurs?
dinosaurs. I hope not dinosaurs, but hopefully that's the life story of both of us.
Yes.
So coming back to the question again, I just wanted to ask what does it mean being a culture coach, an executive coach in an organization?
Okay, so executive coaching is an eclectic area which combines many fields, but mainly business and psychological methods and skills to help someone to become a more effective leader. That's basically what it is. These skills are applied to present situation, work-related issues, and the skills are designed to enable the clients or consultees to improve their leadership skills. As a cross-cultural coach, I help businesses, managers, leaders to deal with the complexities of the culturally diverse environments and the change that comes with it to get better results for both businesses and the people. I should also add culturally diverse environments could be a new country or managing a virtual team or working in a very multicultural environment in the organization. So that's basically what I do.
And you're helping the expatriates in a new country to get adapted to their new role, isn't it? It's part of the being a culture coach, as far as I know.
Yes, exactly. That's a new country that they are moving, and I help from the selection process till throughout the onboarding process.
Okay. Well, what's the most difficult part is after the selection, especially. I think that the overall process should be quite challenging until the person gets established to the role and start working productively in relation to the other peoples and employees in the new country.
Yeah.
And especially the family environment. Are you helping the families as well of the person?
If necessary, if it's asked, yes, of course, I would do that because if the employee's family is not happy, I haven't seen one single employee that is happy in the environment if the family is not happy.
You're right, and you're very right, actually. And then again, as far as I know, coaching as well uses lots of psychological skills to be able to do that. And you have a background in social psychology, you have a background in psychology, and then you use a lot of different tools to help the coaching process in the organization.
Well, in a nutshell, yes, coaching uses psychological methods and skills. That's what I can say. I can give you some examples derived from psychology, but mostly psychotherapy that are used in coaching. I think the first one is active listening, the empathy, self-awareness, process observation, giving and receiving feedback, effective use of reinforcement, reframing, and so on. As a social psychologist, because I'm a social psychologist of 30 years, I should say, especially in executive coaching, social psychological findings, tools, and the methods are heavily used. For example, around the leadership skills, many of the social psychological findings are implemented or used. And also in communication, how to give a message, how to receive a message, how to influence people. Because social psychology is very, very simply, it is the study of influence, interpersonal influence. So
and with
how people...
context, as well, isn't it? Within the social environment, the individual within the social environment, basically.
Exactly. So how people people are influenced within the environment they are in, and how they are influenced by each other. So people, I know that what I'm going to say will sound a bit ironic, but people do not operate in isolation. So I know that this is very ironic in the COVID-19 days, but even in those days when we were locked down in our houses, we found a way to connect through technology. So we do not operate in isolation, and therefore leadership and coaching uses quite heavily the social, psychological, and psychotherapeutical methods.
And the technology is an important tool anyway to connect people. We
Exactly.
have actually seen many advantages of using the technology in the right way. In both, I think, coaching and therapy and different, practices and, public speaking even, so people actually can access to each other through using those methods. And we are not that isolated. I mean, the world is a big global village still,
Exactly.
I believe, even after the virus. Basically, that doesn't change. We will always get connected in different ways. Even when we are home, basically, behind the walls, still we are connected, as long as we have the Wi-Fi.
Yes, that's true.
With our mobile phones, and we will be always, I think, connected to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do you see the psychological skills in the business, in your practice in psychotherapy?
I see so many similarities actually between coaching and psychotherapy. I use a lot of coaching skills as well when I do the therapy, with the consultees or clients in the real technical term. I mean, human psychology is, I think, the main thing in many contexts, isn't it? Like, especially in business, when it comes to interpersonal relations, intrapersonal relations, in the company context, in different contexts, human psychology is always central. So when we conduct the psychotherapy, I mean, we are very much focused on the individual characteristics of the person, the authenticity of the person. So when somebody comes to you with a problem, unresolved issue, basically from their past or from their present, a therapist doesn't try to fix the person. I mean, that's what people think, that the therapist actually fixes the person or solves the problem. But it's like a mutual process. You just come together with the individual, you sit together, you focus on the purpose, on the goals of the client or the individual in front of you. You try, again, as you do in the coaching, you try to understand the person by active listening, by listening between the lines, by getting the facts from the person, basically, by asking the right questions. And then you try to find out a formula together. It's like a 50-50 kind of business. A therapy business is sometimes more on the individual side than the therapist side. So the therapist is not a magician.
Not. Oh my God.
A coach is not a magician either.
I know.
Nobody is a magician, but we try to help the person. We try to hold their hands to explore the better versions of themselves at the end of the day, to discover themselves.
To reach their potential, yeah.
Yes, the untapped potential in most of the cases. Maybe on therapy side, we focus more on the healing part by using some of the techniques we have learned by accessing to their conscious mind and their subconscious mind, if we use the hypnosis within the context. On coaching, maybe by focusing more on the short and mid-term goals of the clients to better, formulate their goals in life. That's the main difference. But still, in therapy, I always say the future pacing is an important technique that we are using. Even if the problem is in the past, we don't get stuck to the past. We visit the past. It's like an archive and a museum. We learn from the past, and we just actually discover the different issues in the past, and then we focus on the present and the future. We try to take the individual to the future light, where the person can discover himself or herself in a new world in front of him or her. So I think both topics and both practices have very close similarities, although their trainings and probably education process is a bit different, but they have many similarities. I don't know if you agree with me, because
yes, definitely. I think there are so many similarities. I would like to ask you, how does this work in the workplace?
Yeah, I focus more on the corporate well-being and happiness, especially in the UAE. We have a Minister of Happiness, as far as
yes, I know.
Very, very important topic in the UAE. Happiness is very important everywhere. I think from now on, I actually expect to see in many organizations and countries the happiness of the individual, not in terms of the happiness as a concept, but the well-being of the person in many ways, for mental, physical, and spiritual well-being will matter a lot in the future, after all those experiences we went through, I think, during the COVID times. It's basically more related to organizational behavior in the corporate setting. The individual well-being, of course, is the core, but then when the individual is in general satisfied, then he or she can bring the same the topic, or the, how do we call it, the culture, to the teams, and the teams can bring the same thing to the overall organization.
Happiness is contagious, isn't it?
Yeah, it's contagious, and I'm actually a bit sometimes scared even to use the word happiness. Instead, I always use well-being. Well-being, because in the past, the psychology, the classical psychology is focused on the ill-being. I mean, you are ill and somebody comes and heals you.
Correct.
The positive psychology shows us that you can be totally normal as individuals, but we want to just live a more fulfilled, happy and complete life, both in private and public, basically in the company. So if the person is happy in the private setting, he or she can be happy in the company setting, or wherever he or she works. Now, I think this period of the COVID also showed us that how can we just be more fulfilled in the company context, sometimes without being in the context even physically.
Yes. It challenged all our thinking and feelings as well.
Feelings from different perspectives. We knew that education is possible online, but we never actually experienced to that extent education can go online.
Correct.
Business can go online. The connection and communication can go online. You can have a coffee online. You can have lunch or drink online. It doesn't replace maybe face-to-face relationship, but I think what I actually feel it, the well-being concept in company settings after this process will again transform itself to another version of implementation. We don't need to wait another virus or another intervention, negative intervention comes to our ways, but we need to really reformulate, I think, the way we work, the way we communicate with each other, the way we affect each other, impact each other more positively.
And maybe focus on mental health more in the businesses, because this has been a very hot topic in the UK, and especially last 2-3 years it has been a topic, and even the prince of the country has been working on the mental well-being of people during the COVID-19. So it is an important topic at least in the western part of the world, definitely. But funny enough, the concept of happiness comes from East, from Bhutan. So it started with the Bhutanese king, and after he talked about happiness across the country, United Nations decided to have a happiness day. So I mean, I know that you don't want to mention the happiness; it's more of a well-being. But it all started like this small steps.
I like the term happiness as long as the people really understand what happiness is.
Yes.
I think that the components of the happiness, because we can't be happy all the time. Happiness, the concept happiness is in the moments. We all know that. We actually appreciate the moments we live in. We can have, unhappy moments as well in life, but overall, I think it's important to have a sustainable, a good life, as they say in the ancient, Greece.
Yeah.
A good life with principles and values, and then the happiness is derived from that.
Yes.
That's what I believe deep inside of my brain. And then the other thing I think between a similarity I always see between coaching and therapy is the approach, the non-judgmental approach both coach and therapist has towards their clients or consultees, basically. Non-judgmental, which means like a very supportive approach based on mutual trust. Because if the client trusts the coach, and if the consultee trusts the therapist, then they can open up. The more they open up, the more the solutions can be found on a mutual basis. So I think this non-judgmental approach, the trust approach, credibility is quite equally important in both practices.
Correct.
And for that, I think both practitioners need to be skilled enough, knowledgeable enough to gain this trust. Because trust is gained; it's not given.
No, exactly.
Really.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
This is, I think, what I think.
Yeah. So, shall we talk about the differences between coaching and therapy?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can see both versions of the both worlds, both aspects of two worlds at the same time, as a coach and as a psychologist from your initial profession. So what do you think, what different areas that we have in
well, I completely agree with all the similarities you mentioned. What I'm going to say about the differences are just to mention the practical issues, and no more than that. But coaching focuses mostly on the present and future, as opposed to therapy sometimes being past focused. Not all the time, but sometimes, which you mentioned in just a while ago, that you try to in therapy you try to learn from the past and then move on, but in coaching, past doesn't come into the picture most of the time. Coaching is more action oriented, performance oriented, problem solution focused, and plus, I think I would say growth or skill development focused as well, or oriented, I would say. In coaching, data is collected from key others and clients as well as the person. So there is almost 360 data collection in coaching. I believe that in the therapy, that's not the case. If I'm wrong, please correct, or just after me, you can just continue with what I said. So that's one thing I think that differentiates coaching. The other thing is in coaching, there is an assumption that there is the person, the coachee, does not have any underlying psychopathology, and if there is any, if the coach realizes that there is a deep depression or obsessive compulsive thinking or behavior in the coachee during the sessions, the coach should definitely refer the person to a psychotherapist. That's for sure. So we do not treat those issues. Coaching is more limited. So the psychotherapist starts, and as long as the person wants to continue for his or her well-being, it might continue, but coaching is usually around 6 to 10 sessions, usually a month, one session over a month, over a year time. The boundaries that we have in coaching, the boundaries are more flexible. and in therapy it's more rigid. That's the nature of the business. And the other thing that I find that's a bit of a challenging for everyone from the ethical perspective, it's the definition of the client. It's not clear in coaching most of the time, in executive coaching specifically, because both the company hires the coach, and then the leader or the manager works with the coach. And there is a very fine balance in between the coach, how the coach approaches the confidentiality issues, because the sponsor is the business.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is anything you would like to add.
I agree with many of the points. I think you're right. In psychotherapy, we are more focused on emotional needs, basically, of the individual. I mean, psychotherapists also work with psychiatrists. If the person is on a treatment, the psychiatrist refers back to a therapist sometimes to make the person feel a bit more relaxed. If there's the issue of the anxiety or depression is there, the therapist is working hand in hand in collaboration with the psychiatrist. I'm more focused on the corporate well-being side, basically, rather than the individual needs. For me, the corporate setting and the well-being of the individual within the corporate settings is quite crucial. But I agree with many points, basically. I agree with the 360-degree assessment you mentioned you get for the coach to be able to get different viewpoints from different perspectives in a company environment. In one-to-one therapy sessions, we usually ask the consultee or the client to fill a form where they open up with their issues. And sometimes among the questions, there might be also other people's perspectives. I mean, we can add questions like, what do you think your best friend thinks about you? What do you think your boss thinks about you? But we don't really go and ask the boss or the best friend ourselves, but they provide us with their own data. This is what they think, that the different viewpoints they can actually gather from different perspectives and people. I mean, the more they open up, the more you can help them, the more they can help themselves, basically. That's the main area. We also don't want the person to be very dependent on the therapist for the rest of their lives. The aim is just to have a certain number of sessions, as long as the person needs those sessions, basically, build up on those sessions, and in the future to become their own therapists, their self-therapists, basically. That's the thing, to be independent. I like the word, self-therapist, your own therapist, becoming your own, basically, well-being therapist. It's because I always believe that every individual is empowered to do whatever they just want to do. Sometimes they are lost in their own issues. All of us, I mean, we are at the same time, all of us, we need therapy. Even the therapists need therapy. When we were receiving, the extensive training in psychotherapy for 5 years ago, we also received a quite extensive, and I still received an extensive supervisory training. So you need to be supervised as therapist in your practice, basically, just to see if you do the right thing. If new implementations come to the picture, and then you need to refresh yourselves as well on different techniques that you're using every year with different people. So it's like an ongoing learning process, I always believe, like everything else, isn't it? Yeah. The learning doesn't stop. Exactly. You can't say, I just graduated from that practice, I have a diploma or, several certificates and I'm done. You can't really say this. It's a very ongoing process until the end of your life, as long as you continue doing the practice. Yeah. So this is, I think, important to take into consideration. And I also like working with the coaches myself on individual basis, and in terms of collaboration, basically working with a coach and therapist can very well work together, as you say. When it comes to more sensitive emotional issues, they can have the support of a therapist, and then they can easily complement each other.
Correct.
In that
Correct.
perspective.
Correct. And I think I would like to add one more thing about the similarities between therapy and coaching before we move into the next questions. I think it's the trust that we hold for people. We believe that people have the answers of all their questions in themselves. They just need to dig in and have the courage to see the answers. They have the answers, and that's what we trust in people.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's always exciting, I think, to work with a coach, and it's exciting to work with a therapist if you really have this trust, mutually with the person.
Exactly.
It's a very exciting business.
Exactly.
And it's like open for, I think, improvement and new things all the time. As long as human psychology is very central to our world, to the world we are living in, it's an exciting, I think, practice all the time.
Exactly.
What do we have it here? I think I have another question to you, which it always triggers my mind to ask that. What's the process of being a culture coach in a company? Why usually the companies hire a culture coach? What does a culture coach bring to a company?
Well, let's start with first the process of coaching, and then talk about the cross-cultural part of it. Coaching basically, with some minor differences in some different coaching methodologies, it follows the GROW model. GROW model is G is for identifying the goal. So every single coaching session starts with identifying the goal. The second one is the reality check. So where we are at the moment, where the person is at the moment, it's checked about that subject. The third one is the opportunities, checking for the opportunities. What could be done differently? What are the available options for the person in the context, and so on. And the last one is the commitment of the person to take the necessary next steps for the change. That is the willingness. So within this model, the coach asks mostly open-ended questions and listens actively and observes actively the person, and they both agree on the goal, and the process starts. So around this process, I would talk about the cross-cultural coaching, and I would easily say that the process is not so different. The difference would be when you come to the cross-cultural coach, the goal is almost there. The goal is almost identified. It is to help the person to move into a new country, to move into a new team that is culturally diverse, or manage a team of culturally diverse people, either virtual or in the same office, or to move into a new company which is a completely different culture than the previous one. So the aim is almost there. The goal is almost there. The aim is to improve the cultural intelligence of the person and the organization, for that matter. Because cultural intelligence is, as you know quite well, the #1 competency for 21st century leaders. As moving into a new country or a new organization with a multicultural setting would be both exciting and at the same time very fearful. So as a cross-cultural coach, I help the person and the businesses, the consultees, let's say, as you like to use that word, more than the client. I help the consultees to utilize the energy that comes from those feelings of excitement and fear. So the most important part of the cross-cultural coaching is the norms. What is normal and what is not, and challenging the personal and organizational norms, if you like. I mean, COVID-19 was a completely culture change for all of us, and it is, I mean, you know, it challenged our norms, our normal, quite heavily. I mean, even today we are talking about going back to new normal. It is not normal, it is new normal. So that is the cultural change we are talking about. So helping the person to put herself into the shoes of a new culture, or another person from a different culture, and seeing things from a different perspective is the main aim of cross-cultural coaching. Another skill that is required in all leadership roles, but specifically in cross-cultural leadership, is curiosity. Curiosity without prejudices, asking questions and continuous learning. And for some leaders, asking the questions are, you know, could be seen as weakness, because the leader needs to know everything, depending on the culture that the leader comes from. But curiosity is very, very important for in cross-cultural contexts. Those are the things that skills that I try to help people and the companies, and I use, for example, where do I help the clients or my coaches? Usually I help them with the delegation, self-presentation, managing teams, managing virtual teams, time management, strategic decision making, strategic planning, goal setting, performance management, conflict resolution, crisis management, client management, you name it. And these can be both in executive coaching, under the executive coaching title, or this could be in a cross-cultural setting. Of course, if it's cross-cultural settings, it's even more challenging and more difficult. But to me, the most important skill that every leader across the world has to have is getting along with people in the business. Because if you do not have that skill, you can't be a leader.
That's true. You can't even establish any system without having.
Exactly. So that is the number one skill that I would like to think that I help my clients with.
Okay. Well, great. So it has been already, I think, 35 minutes, as I can actually see it.
Yes.
We can talk forever, you and I. We can talk forever, and this conversation can go on. And I think it's a bit wise to just come to a conclusion. Today's conversation was quite beneficial to me, just to see the differences and the similarities between two practices, how they complement each other. And I think I can have one more, takeaway from that conversation. As long as, both coach and a therapist are, skillful and educated and knowledgeable about what they do, and as long as they have this trust and credibility established in themselves, and when they have the connection with their clients or consultees, I think it's both practices are quite useful to the individuals, to the businesses, and to different contexts, and then they can work together very fruitfully and productively.
Exactly. Both are aiming to increase the employee engagement. Both are aiming to help the leaders or the business people to have better relations with their key clients, or with their clients, for that matter, the whole client team, and helping people to have a better work-life balance as well.
Yeah. A meaning-centered life, basically. That's I was always emphasizing in my own speeches and sessions. Like, as long as you have a meaning-centered life, when you do and what you do has a meaning in the central context, it's quite useful for the future.
Exactly.
We need to have all a meaning-centered life.
Yeah, exactly. If people find meaning in their life experiences, they are happier, and they can cope with the challenges that come through life better.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much, Hande, and all the best.
Thank you.
Okay, and then bye from Dubai for the time being, and hopefully we see each other soon.
Yeah, hopefully. Bye. Bye.
Yeah, bye bye.